This computer. All
Got
right.
it.
How you doing?
Oh man, I am excited. I'm excited. We're about a month away.
We are. We're actually about I think we're about 3 weeks away, a little over 3 weeks away from some week zero action. And
There are now.
uh
I've checked out the week zero action, and I'm not sure that there's a lot there for me. But
yeah.
that first weekend, it's going to be a good game. Some good
Oh yeah.
games.
Yeah, it should be really good. I'm sure I will have enough withdrawals tonight to just take in, you know, a bunch of street free agents running around in Canton on that high school field in Canton. So but
Oh, that's right. There's a game on tonight.
uh-huh. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. Have you been keeping the reason for this is, of course, the insanity that's going on with all the conferences. And have you been keeping up with it the last few days?
Marginally, marginally,
Okay.
and I would say that I'm at least aware of the hand wringing at Florida State
Uh-huh.
over the ACC media deal,
Yep.
and I'm somewhat aware of kind of the interest that the Big Ten seems to have in a couple of schools over on the West Coast, other than UCLA and USC.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, um, the Colorado move
Uh-huh.
and the, you got to wonder about how that might have not happened if Dion wasn't there. I don't know, right? I mean, that feels like a pretty strong pull to me.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And that was a real interesting move for him. And I think it's gonna, that's a whole nother subject as far as what his thing is gonna look like. He's drawing a lot of this talent. I don't know how quickly it can coalesce into
Well,
some somebody that can a team that can compete. But we'll find out pretty quick because they're playing TCU the first game.
I
So
know, and that's him being in that conference with the access to DFW and really to Texas feels like to me that would be something he'd be excited about too. But yeah, it's there's a lot going on, and it feels like a long way from where we were, 10, 12, 20 years ago, right?
it really does. It really does. I made a quick, we talked about we didn't really have a whole lot of chance to prepare for this, but I made a quick list of what I came up with today. Toward the end, earlier I was listening to a Twitter has these spaces. Have you tried that? Have you seen it? Have you had any of those where you?
No, no.
Okay. Well, they had about half a dozen writers from the Pac-12 and Big 12. And I think it was mostly Pac-12 writers kind of comparing notes. Okay, what are you hearing? Because they're probably just standing right outside the 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 boardroom or wherever the administration is about to have their meetings. And it sounds like that Arizona was pretty much ready to go, and that Arizona's, I guess they're connected by the education board or whatever that is, and that they're not tied together. They're tied together but loosely. They can kind of try to get them to go together, encourage them to go together, but they don't have to. It seems like over the course of the last 36 hours, Arizona State's kind of come around, and Utah has too. Utah apparently at 48 hours ago was not interested at all in moving, and they've kind of been talked into um, the reality of the situation. And that was one of the things that came up. And
I do think as a sports fan, um, I probably don't have enough appreciation for kind of the academic institutions and what they see as comparables,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So, not every school is Michigan, right? Not every school is Stanford, right? And so that they do have ways of distinguishing themselves. And I'm not sure, honestly, which of the Pac-12 schools would fit in that elite category.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Well, and that's part of it, and that's part of what started this whole thing. The genesis of this. I mean, you could go back a ways, but George Klaviakov, if I'm saying his name correctly, about 2 or 3 years ago, he was trying to get some of those Big 12 schools once Texas and OU left, and the Pac-12. They kind of turned up their nose at some of the Big
Yeah.
12 choices because
Yeah.
of academics.
Yeah.
And Klykov, George Kliavkoff, whatever his name is, he's going to take the hit on all this. But it could be that those regions, the presidents were like, we don't want, the little sisters of the poor in Big 12 as far as academically, we don't want them in our club. And that may end up destroying the conference, ending the Pac-12 conference.
It is. It's interesting. I mean, so I don't know where you want to go with all of this, really, because our prep time was incredible. The depth of our prep time, but
Right.
what if you know? So I mean, is the Rose Bowl, is it in play for the Big Ten championship game? I mean, think about that, right?
Uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
used to be the Rose Bowl. Used to be those conferences, right?
Mhm.
For some reason, I want to say that Washington and Oregon may be more of an elite academic school than Utah or uh, even Arizona State.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I mean, how many schools can the Big Ten take?
Well, there's been discussion about that. It sounds like the chatter online is that they're preparing for Oregon and Washington,
Yeah.
and that they're really not interested in California and Stanford at this point. Obviously, I mean that would be an academic move, not a athletic move, but that they're preparing to take those two. And the word out of Oregon is, okay, we're waiting. We're waiting for somebody. It's like Arizona's waiting for Oregon to make a move. Oregon's waiting for it. They're each waiting for who's going to push the domino over. When in reality, USC and UCLA started the dominoes last year.
Yeah.
So
You kind of wonder, right? I mean, I mean, how does Minnesota, how does Illinois, how does Indiana feel about this, right? I mean, it's one thing to, I mean, USC and UCLA, they just got two more teams that they probably can't beat, and now we're talking about Oregon, and we're not interested in Cal and Stanford, two teams that we might could beat, right?
uh-huh. Yep.
It's just kind of an interesting thing. I
They're,
mean,
they're interested in that media check, and
well, it is. It is so. It's just a business. I mean, this is all just being run about optimizing, cashing in. We got the content. They want the content. Let's cash in, or we don't want to be left out of the cash in, right?
Yep. On this Twitter Spaces, one of the guys was going through the money, and he said one of the Big 12's advantages is that they don't have to, at least with ESPN, they can offer a full share to anybody that comes along, as long as they're a Power Five. Now, the Big Ten, their contracts, they can't do that. And I guess they can offer neighborhood a half for a small, short period. So Oregon and Washington are looking at that and they're like, wow, we're going to have to take a half share for a little while. And I would think that would kind of rub them the wrong way.
Well, so Fox has the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah, it's Fox's share. And evidently what share Fox has with the Big 12, they could prorate that to some degree. But for what ESPN has of the Big 12, if Arizona State, and Utah come in, they get a full share what the other teams do. They'll up or ESPN will up their dollar figure to match.
I'd heard Apple might be in play for some, and here's what I don't hear. I don't hear CBS, ABC. Of course, ABC is part of ESPN now, but NBC. I don't hear those networks that you got a sign behind you right now. CBS Sports. who are they broadcasting? Who's their
Yeah.
contract with? I don't even know.
Well, Apple tried to get the Pac-12 contract on the cheap. That's part of what happened with this last meeting that they had. And I think they offered it was in the low 20s for each school. And the Big 12 is like 31, 32 million per school. And I think the Apple was trying to get the Pac-12 on the cheap. So, at some point, Apple, Prime, at some point it's going to be going that direction. But
Yeah.
maybe
Well, it
not
reminds
quite.
me of
Yeah.
it reminds me of a digital conversation we had one night when we were talking about ranking. I don't know if it's conferences or colleges and comparing them to restaurants,
Uh,
chain
right. I remember
restaurants,
that.
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. And that
I mean,
was
not you got
that was on
Applebee's
point
out
too.
there, you got
Yeah.
Outback, and then you got you know, I mean, there's just a pecking order, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's interesting. I mean, because the networks know who brings eyes. So you got the programs that bring eyes to the set because it's a brand. Notre Dame is clearly, and then you got the markets, right? That you want to be part of. You want to be part of these big markets, Los Angeles, right? Um, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
It will be the next few days will be really interesting. And I think Florida State my impression of things when I read what I'm reading is that Florida State and Clemson probably would be in the same situation, although they're not been as vocal about it. Apparently, Florida State is openly saying we are exploring ways to get out of the
Oh yeah,
ACC.
I don't think they're
And,
making any secret about that.
yeah, and it's because they signed that deal that's going till 2036, and there's no escalators in the deal or anything like that. They're stuck at that dollar figure, and I would think that part of the reason they're speaking up right now is because they see the winds of change, and they're basically saying, "Hey, here we are. We're open
They're
for business."
getting left behind. Well, so I think I heard that they if they're going to do something have to make their intentions known by into like 2 weeks, like August 14th
Right.
or
I
something
think
like
it's
that.
the 14th or the 15th. So,
Man,
and something else about a deadline. Going back to the Apple thing, this is how bad the deal was that was offered to the Pac-12. It was like the low 20s, the deal for the Pac-12 contract, and they had to accept it by close of business, I think, tomorrow, like the end of the week. So, I mean, they were in a better bargaining position than the Big 12 about 18 months ago. And now they're fighting for their life.
it's
But
interesting.
because the
Yeah, it's
Big 12
crazy.
jumped on the contract first,
I, I,
they're a lot.
I feel I'll tell you who's not being considered at all is the fan.
Mhm.
I mean, just think about how geography of these conferences. Think about some of the traditional things that are getting busted up and broken up.
Yep.
And honestly, for some fans of, occasionally competitive teams, if they're getting pushed into a conference with teams that are always competitive, their chances just got worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, would you rather be a fan of a team that's winning their conference or competing for their conference year in, year out, even if it's not the conference, or be part of the conference and knowing you never have a chance?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And that genie, it's not going back into the bottle. You're probably like me in that I'd love to roll it back to at least the teams and the way they're set up to 1978, to where you have a
Oh, yeah.
Southwest Conference.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
all of that, but the way it's packaged now, it's never going
Well,
back.
it's easy to romanticize that, isn't it? That was so. I can't imagine there weren't ads in 1978 who weren't all about the money.
Yeah.
It just wasn't what it is today.
Well, we didn't get to watch, the landmark case in '84. I guess it was Oklahoma brought the lawsuit where it opened up
Right.
the TV.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you'd almost like to have the old conferences, but with all the access now, where you have
Yeah.
you can watch any game you want. but you have all the old traditional rivalries, and
Well, they were geographic, they were geographic based, right?
yeah.
I mean, you had the Big Eight. I mean, yeah, I can't even imagine USC and UCLA being in the Big Ten.
Well, and I guess that's the logic for Oregon and Washington State. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be palatable, but now they have a travel partner for, they're going to be, they'll play those three teams every year at
Well,
least.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so if you get 4 or 6 of those teams on the West Coast, then Big Ten can offer Fox a late night package,
Right.
right?
And somebody hypothesized on that Twitter voices that Apple, if the Pac-12 thing falls apart, Apple could turn right around and go to the Big Ten and say, look, those four Pac-10 teams you took, we'll take that late game package, and here's the deal. So,
I
yeah,
can see that happening.
uh-huh, yeah, it's it's funny because I've been coming home from work after just walking in the heat, the office, and I was in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. So I come home and I just get on Twitter and I'm just Pac-12 scroll, Big 12 scroll, just see for news. And maybe that's the kind of demented state that we football fans are in. It's just anything.
Well, those sports writers I mean, it's breaking news, right? It's happening right now, and it's important in lots of ways. And so it's a and part of the fun of sports is speculating, right? I mean, kind of we like to speculate about sports, others speculate about politics or whatever, right?
Right.
So it is fun.
Yep. Yep. It is. Well, do you have any, we set up the Shotwell thing. Are you ready? Do you have any, I know we'll have hopefully we can have a
Yeah,
picks thing in a few
yeah,
weeks. We won't do that here, but
yeah,
do you have
yeah.
any
I
early
was,
thoughts about some of the teams that you're going to be looking at, or?
yeah, I was looking at the scroll of the odds, national championship odds or whatever, and I know that I'm basing this completely pretty much off a quarterback, but I like USC.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um,
He was,
I think the way that they ended the year last year gives them something to prove, and I think they might be able to kind of get through, at least into November without much difficulty, right? And so you got to kind of, if you start up high,
mhm.
then you have a clear advantage.
Yep.
But so who is like who's number one right now? I mean, who's going to be the number one team? Is that already out?
Well, I I don't know how far Georgia dropped with the people they lost, but I don't think they dropped that far.
So are they
I haven't looked
are
at
they
the
going to be
rankings.
preseason number one?
Pardon?
Are they going to be preseason number one? You think?
I would think they'd be in the top five. I mean, they lost the last two classes. Georgia lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know the cupboard's not empty, but I don't know. Of course,
Michigan will
Alabama,
be there. Michigan will be
Michigan will
there.
be up there. Um, TCU
So
lost a lot.
let's just try to think if we can come up with the top five.
Okay.
So we got Georgia, we got Michigan, and I'm saying USC.
USC, Alabama.
Okay.
There's four.
Okay. LSU.
LSU. Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely with Kelly in his second year. And they were pretty good last year. We talked about Florida State last year. That
Yeah.
was one of your picks.
I don't know who
And
we're leaving out.
yeah, that's yeah, that's a pretty good top six right there. Oregon.
I am looking forward to, so you anticipate that the Colorado TCU game will be good just because, but here's what I'll say is after that game, I wonder if you'll be thinking, well, are they that good or are they that bad?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Sure.
I don't know that that's going to be much of a litmus test for either team, But in my mind, that's the marquee game of that weekend.
Oh, absolutely. That'll be a fun game. And who else is playing that first week? In fact,
So, and I mean, think about that. It's a marquee game, and that is totally based on the personality of the coach of Colorado.
because
And the
before
fact
that,
that TCU was in the national championship game last year, right? And they're playing it in Fort Worth. And so that brings that.
it's a team that's going to be in the conference next year. All of a sudden,
that too, right? Yeah. So it's it's such a marketing thing.
let's see, top 25. Wait a minute, top 25. Where is it? I guess Power Five. Okay, they don't have the rankings out yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. I don't
No.
think so. So it'll be interesting. Here's another way we could look at that. Okay, top 10. So SEC is going to have how many teams in the top 10 preseason? 5?
Well,
half?
I would say
And
at
I'm not
least
even thinking about
at
the
least
teams.
three.
I'm just guessing.
I would say of the top 12, you could definitely say 4. Ole Miss. Who else would be? South Carolina is going to be in the top 20 for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
their
in my
year.
mind, I mean, so we got Georgia and Alabama for sure.
And
then I do think it's kind of interesting where you go from there. I mean, does
A&M was, last year they were supposed to be in there and they kind of, fell down a little bit.
I think there's a lot of
their recruiting. They should be up there.
I'll believe it when I see it, folks, on both Texas teams, Texas A&M and Texas.
Yeah, both Texas and A&M. It's this is the year, and it doesn't happen very often, at least recently. So,
well, and so both of Texas and Oklahoma trying to lead the Big 12 with a championship. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I would say I feel better about Texas's chances than Oklahoma's right now.
Yeah, I think Texas is kind of a little bit more on the upswing, and Oklahoma's is a little on the downswing from what now Texas is picked to win the conference. But this is their chance. This may be both of their chances to win a conference title for the next few years. I don't know how. I was thinking about that earlier today about how next year what will be considered a good season for Texas and Oklahoma. To me, I would think 8 or 9 wins is a decent goal, and I mean anything beyond that would be stretching it.
You kind of wonder, when was the last time Texas won 10 games? I mean, I don't know.
It was that Sam Ellinger, that game with Georgia.
Did they win 10 that year?
Yeah, and it may have taken the bowl game to get to the 10.
Was that his freshman year?
Yeah,
I think that was.
But no,
that's been a while.
Yeah, or his sophomore year. Yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah, and then A&M had they have a 10-win season after Manziel? I know they did with Manziel, but I think they may have had a 9 or 10-win season after that. Am I wrong?
I'm gonna say no.
You may be right about that. Boy, we're getting old because that Manziel year seems like yesterday. It just seems like yesterday.
What was that, 10 years?
Yeah, that's how old we are. Wow.
So I think it's hard to bet against Saban. It's hard to bet against Kelly. I think Alabama, LSU, and Georgia, I feel pretty strong about those 3 teams in the SEC. I do hope South Carolina has a good team. I like their coach. And I think it's a cool thing when a quarterback leaves a major program because he got beat out and then goes somewhere else and does good, like Jalen Hurts did at Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
I think Michigan is clearly the best of the class in that conference, and I think it'll be interesting to see if Ohio State and between Ohio State and Penn State. I hear that could be pretty close.
Mhm.
And like I said, I think USC is probably the best out on the West Coast, but it's not unusual for Oregon to have a good team. And
Mhm.
I
Well, they
really
got Bo
thought
Nix.
UC, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And we talked about
how
Bo
many
Nix.
years is Bo Nix playing? I mean, like what year is this?
Well, and we were talking about him as being like kind of like a career backup in the NFL or something, and people are talking about him as a first round pick, and I don't know, as a quarterback evaluator, I'm not qualified to do that other than just my armchair, but we both liked him at the beginning of the season last year, but he may be better
Well,
than even both we thought.
I I don't know. I'm struggling to think. I mean, once you get past the USC quarterback, who's the next quarterback drafted?
Well, there's the kid from, is it Drake May, North
Oh, from North
Carolina.
Carolina. That's
Been a little
right.
bit. They got Joe Milton,
At
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Of course, you got Rattler. You've got the kid from Florida State kid. I forget his name. Can't
Yeah, I
think of it.
forgot all about Tennessee. So Tennessee will be an interesting program to watch, won't
Yep.
they? I mean, they were on such a a rise last year, and then their quarterback Cooker got hurt, and
Yep.
what they lose two or three of their last four games, or something like that.
Yep. So yeah, it's going to be Tennessee, and I'm not sure they did lose. They did lose a fair amount of people, but it's always hard to tell how deep. I mean, you say, well, they lost a whole bunch, but those big programs have a deep, deep bench, and all those scholarships, and I think that's one of the things about college football that makes it so fun is that you learn about new players every year, and
Yeah, the things that I love about college football are the traditions and pageantry, right? And just what you're getting when you turn on the TV, right? And that's cool, and you love it. And the just unpredictability of 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds playing a game that matters so much to us and to their coaches, and
Mhm.
they just don't show up every Saturday the way you think they should.
Well, on my YouTube feed, I think it was yesterday morning. I just popped up my computer before I went to work to kind of check things out, and YouTube happened to pop up, and it popped up the kick six, and so I had about 5 minutes. I hit play, and just what an incredible play! That was 10 years ago, and just
That was 10 years ago.
incredible. Pardon?
That
That's
was
10
10
years
years
ago.
ago. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Just yeah. It's those things, and I appreciate you sending that video because it kind of that was a good piece, but because it kind of encapsulated the whole
It was kind of
fans and
lengthy, but I do enjoy that, and it's just there's just nothing like it.
oh,
Now I like other sports, and I can watch March Madness, and I'm cool watching even the College World Series, and certainly the Major League World Series, but college football and the NFL, it is just hard to let go of that, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking real forward to it.
I am too. I am too. Now, are there some? Have you been to a lot of big time college football games?
No, I really haven't.
Okay.
I've I've been to Tennessee, so I've been to Neyland Stadium. Um, I've been, of course, to Memorial Stadium in Kyle Field.
Hmm.
I've been to TCU's. I've been to the Cotton Bowl. Um, but yeah, I haven't really. How about you?
I of course, went to Memorial Stadium last year. Went to two Cotton Bowls at Jerry World with um with Jared, my nephew. That was something that he enjoyed doing when he came to town, and he that was a tradition for a couple of years. So okay, get some good tickets. And usually the Cotton Bowl would be the years when it wasn't the semifinal. And so you have teams from out of town, and you can get some decent seats. Or I mean, you can get a lot more bang for your buck as far as where you're sitting in a Cowboy game. for sure, and those were fun. My college buddy of mine and I have talked about making that an annual trip, picking out a place
Oh, I think it's a great idea.
to go. And I've been kind of sorting through and looking through some places like going to LSU, um,
Oh my
Virginia
gosh.
Tech at night. I mean,
Oh,
the night game
crazy.
seems really neat. Where, like at Virginia Tech, they've got Metallica, they got Inner Sandman, and the
Yeah,
crowd is
yeah.
just going ballistic.
I think that'd be a great thing to do. I
Uh,
would love that. Now, some places are easier to get to than others,
there's
right?
going to be some cost involved.
I mean,
So
I've heard getting to Penn State is almost impossible. State
it's
College.
it's
Yeah,
out in the middle of nowhere,
it
basically.
is.
And Blacksburg, I think, is kind of it's a remote place too, and that's part of college football. Also, um, it's not in a city urban area a lot of times. The big programs, at least.
It was so to the idea of doing that, right? So I
Uh-huh.
think Michigan, Notre Dame, the Rose Bowl, um, anything in the Southeast Conference,
Hmm.
uh, those would certainly be easy ones to get to. But there's, and it's been a long time that
Uh-huh.
Nebraska's been any good.
Right.
But when they were good,
That was a madhouse.
sell out. I mean, sell out every time, right? And that you've heard the idea that on game day that was the third largest city in Nebraska. Now that's not saying a whole lot, but
Right. And we talked about Matt Rule last year. That
I'm just going to say I'm a Matt Rule fan,
Me too.
and I would love to see the Nebraska coordinators at least get to a bowl game
Hmm.
and maybe one that's closer to New Year's than not.
Yep. I
But I
agree.
think they gotta. I don't even know who they. I don't know. I couldn't name a player on their team.
No, I couldn't either. They've got a ways to go, but he's got a track record. And I think the NFL. We talked about this last year. If you don't have a quarterback, um, as a coach, at least at the pro level, you only can go so far. And
That's true.
in college, it's not necessarily. It's college is becoming more that way, but it's not as much. You don't have to have a Heisman Trophy winner or anything like that to win. It'll be interesting to see how he does.
The
And
the more plays your quarterback can make, the further you can go. I think that's true.
you
But
have to
I
wonder about them dealing him Mayfield last year. That's still, you wonder if the GM says this is what's happening, and he's like, okay, but are you trying to get me fired? So, um,
that's really
well, what
funny.
we got a few more minutes. Anything about pro that you want to get
No,
off your
but
before we
let's.
end?
So can we talk for a few minutes about baseball? I
Oh,
mean,
we can do that.
think about what's happened in the past week in baseball. I mean, so you and I both are similar. I guess Rangers fan as much as anything,
Right.
and pretty exciting that they got some more arms.
Hmm.
And certainly Cy Young winner. Max Scherzer, and I was feeling pretty good about that. And then you know, uh, Houston comes along and just trumps everybody. I mean, Max Verlander and um, so I guess what I'd say about baseball is I'm enjoying the Rangers run.
Hmm.
I think that they're going to make the playoffs. I am not kidding myself. I hope that it's neck and neck with Houston all the way to the end.
Hmm.
But really, I think Houston right now looks like a team that's going to be hard to beat in October, and
Definitely.
and the Braves certainly look like they're going to be really hard to beat in
Mhm.
October.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I do pay attention to that some. So that's kind of
I-
been, last week was trade deadline, so it's kind of fun.
It
I
was
actually it was
fun.
this week, Tuesday, I guess.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, this I've caught some more Ranger games this year for obvious reasons. They're playing well, and it's funny the cubicle at my work, the lady right across from me on the other side is a huge Astros fan.
Yeah, that's
And
the way life
so,
works, isn't
well,
it?
yeah, it's pretty fun, and so we're going back and forth, and she's so what do you think you guys are going to do? And we have a little fun with each other.
It
And
is.
he's a diehard Houston fan from way back when they were
Yeah.
wearing the rainbow jerseys
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that.
Well, I went to an Astros game, Rangers Astros game on Monday before July 4th. It was July 3rd game. I don't know if you
Right.
that was a day a lot of people had off, and
Right.
Houston got out to a 10-2 lead, a 10-2 lead, and I'm sitting there, and there are a lot. I would say 35% of the crowd's Houston fans, and they're having a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
And then the Rangers start chipping back and chipping back. In the bottom of the eighth, they take the lead. I'm gonna tell you, the Rangers fans were just loving it and giving it so much. Those Astros fans.
Uh-huh.
And then the top of the ninth comes, and we
Yep.
can't get them out.
It's a lot more fun than last year, isn't it?
It is fun, and I mean, it was standing room only, like that whole weekend. And I was thinking, how? I mean, those are what is that, like a $5 million event for the Rangers when it's a sellout? I mean, I don't know how much it is, but I was thinking, sitting there, going, I would not even be thinking about doing this if they were still playing across the street, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 77 degrees in there or whatever it is, and I'm gonna step outside into 100 something degrees, and I'm gonna tell you, so they're making their money, and as
Oh,
a fan, I think that will help. It should help, right? It should.
well, and
So anyway,
and also the expectations. I went into the season. I my coworker that's across the way said, "What do you guys?" And I said, "Hey, if we win 90 games and make the playoffs, I will consider it a win, this year." And I said that before the season starts, but I'm sticking to that because I don't want to get disappointed.
no, I think that's a good mark.
90 wins, a wild card spot, even if we get swept out. And sometimes if you're a year early and you catch a couple breaks, who knows? So
I
it's
think
going to be
Bochy's
fun.
doing a great job too. I think he's such a stabilizing force, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I do watch a lot of it, and so we'll see how that goes. Of course, that won't be over till like Halloween. So
It should be a fun fall around here. So
it should.
well, sir, it's been good. I just figured there was so much craziness going on. I needed to ring you up and see if we could chat a little bit.
I
Thanks for the
appreciate
call.
you inviting me to do it. It's always fun, and I hope you
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your week.
You do the same, and we'll talk again, I guess, here in about 2 or 3 weeks, and so start working on your picks, and we'll see what we come up with.
I'd love to. All right.
All right, man.
Take care.
Talk to you later. See ya.
Bye.